I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for a moment of silence, if we, I have no doubt that there's, in the Middle East, there's the need for a lot of prayers all across this country and the entire world, actually. And so let's have a moment of silence for all those that have lost their lives and those that are probably going to lose their lives in the next few weeks. Thank you very much. Time is allotted at the end of each meeting for the commissioners to receive comments from the public. First up, we have a couple public notices. Legislative bond initiatives, notice of public hearing. The hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, October the 24th of 2023. And then we have Code Home Rule 5-2023 entitled Outdoor Retreats in Rural Character, Rural Residential, and Community Residential Districts. And it says a public hearing is scheduled for November the 14th, 2023 at 10 a.m. We have 3 consent items. We have the regular session minutes of October the 3rd, 2023. We have liquor minutes dated October 3rd, 2023. And we have some closed session minutes dated October the 3rd, 2023. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion to have a second?
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. And our first appointment is Dr. Karen Couch, Superintendent, and Craig Kirby, Accountant for Kent County Public Schools, to talk about FY 2025 Capital Improvement Plan. Dr. Couch?
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Good.
President Fithian, County Commissioners, Ms. Heller, thank you for the opportunity to present our annual capital improvement plan. This is required by the IAC that we have this approved on an annual basis, so this is not new. At least it's not new for President Fithian and Mrs. Heller. But this is something that we present just so that we can keep the county in the loop in terms of what our capital improvement plan is. Before I begin, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce Dr. Lever back here. He is our educational facilities consultant, and as many of you may know, he spent a great deal of his career as the executive director for the IAC, so he brings a great deal of expertise and knowledge for the Kent County Public Schools as we move forward. I'd also like to take an opportunity to introduce my board members. I won't take up a lot of your time to introduce them by name, but they're in the back, and if you'll just wave. I've got almost every one of my board members here today. Before I turn it over and let Mr. Kirby fill you in on what is in our capital improvement plan, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an update in terms of where we are, because the major capital improvement project that we have listed in this document is the Kent County Middle School, replacement of Kent County Middle School. The board at our last board meeting, our last regularly scheduled board meeting, they agreed unanimously with my recommendation to keep the middle school in Chestertown. There was a great deal of discussion and a lot of research that was done in terms of making that final determination. Many of you, we presented before you that we had a number of options that were available to us, and we narrowed it down to the 2 options, one at Wharton, and then one at Chestertown. And I know some of you expressed your desire to keep it in Chestertown. Well, we went through a really very fluid and very comprehensive list of all of the pros and cons, and we weighted all of those, and it became very evident to all of us that the best place to build and replace the middle school would be to keep it here in Chestertown. We are working with Senator Hershey's office and District 36 delegation to change the state participation level of this project. Right now, we are a 50-50 county. In other words, whenever we do a major project or any kind of renovation project, 50% comes from the local, 50% comes from the state. We've done a lot of research in terms of other school systems that have high level of poverty, particularly those school systems that have community eligibility provision schools, which means all of the students qualify for free lunch and free breakfast. And we did an average of what that percentage would be, and it came up to 98%. So we just completed the drafting the legislation with Senator Hershey's office. We're going to pre-file legislation, and we're going to request that the state change Kent County's eligibility for state participation to 98%. And they feel fairly confident that we can get something done at this legislative session. So our hope is that we can get 98%. If we can get 98%, that means that the state will pay for 98% of all the eligible costs. We are exploring other options. The other thing that's really interesting is in the past, when we've done renovation projects at Rock Hall Elementary and at Galena, local had to pay for all of the architectural, the design, and the planning. All of that fell on the county to pay 100%. Since then, that has changed at the state level, and so now it's equal participation. So right now, it would be 50% would be paid for by the state, 50% paid for by local, but if we get that changed to 98%, then 98% would be paid for by the state for the planning and design of this project. The other thing that's different is the Stadium Authority is in place in Build to Learn Act, which the Build to Learn Act means that we would have the opportunity to participate and access those funds that are allocated to Kent County Public Schools, and then we could use the Stadium Authority to provide us at no cost to the local school system or the county government a project manager for the new construction. As you'll recall, for every other project that we've done, we've paid for it locally, and we've not been able to access the Stadium Authority to pay for 100% of the project manager. So I think that we're exploring every way to make this a desirable project. It's something that we very much need. We need to improve the learning environment for our students at Kent County Middle School. It is a 70-plus-year-old school. We haven't seen a new school in this county for a long time. I think it's a long time coming, and this would be a great project not only for economic development in the community, but a positive shot in the arm for our students, our staff, and our families. Once we complete presenting our capital improvement plan, we would need a letter of support. I'm asking for a qualified letter of support from you because I understand that you've got limited available funds to say, oh yeah, we're going to support this 100%, and then we don't get it changed in the legislature in terms of the state participation. So what we're asking you to do, and I provided you with an example or a template of what would be acceptable to the IAC, stating that you do support this project. You understand that it's a need in our community, it's a need for our families, but that this project it's a qualified support with the understanding that we get state participation levels up, and then there are funds that are identified by the county to direct towards this project. So I hope that all of the stars align themselves and we can come back with good news from the legislature. And if we can get this at a much higher level of state participation, I think that this is a very desirable project that I hope that you all will support and find a way to fund in future years. Cray will go through the what's in our capital improvement plan, and then we'll stand for questions and, answer anything you might have. So,
Thank you.
Cray.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. Dr. Couch did a really nice job of, summarizing where we're at, and really summarizing a lot of what's in the CIP that you see before you. The biggest part of the fiscal year 2025 CIP is obviously the first step in the process, which is the architectural and engineering fees and design fees. So as of today, as of right now, we have to continue on, assuming that it's going to be the state cost share at the moment. Obviously, we're optimistic and hoping that that changes in the future. But as of right now, we're estimating that the architectural engineering fees for this project are going to be about $4.4 million, of which the state is going to be participating in about $1.8 million of that between the Build to Learn Act funding and our CIP. So the county would be responsible for about $2.6 million of that. And as Dr. Couch said, it's a nice change because in past, it was 100% locally funded and had to be paid for by our county government. So it's a nice change from the state side that they have, made that change and made design costs eligible funds now. And just another note, it doesn't come into effect for this CIP request, but in the future, furniture, fixtures, equipment also were part of that county funded in the past. Now that is also part of construction funding. So that'll be at whatever state cost share that we come up with in the future. Hopefully it'll be 98 too. So that's just a little note for the future because especially in past projects, unfortunately, when the budget gets tight, that's usually one of the first things that we end up having to cut, which is unfortunate, but that's just how it typically goes. So hopefully this change with the state will allow us to keep furniture, equipment as a high priority and be able to fund it all the way through the project in the future.
Yeah, and I would just
Sure.
jump in for a second. It's always sad to see when you build a new school and you have the opportunity to build something new and then you have to put the old furniture back in. It's kind of a depressing situation, and a lot of times that is what happens with school systems is they put all their money and then they can't fund the equipment. So it's a really nice change that is a cost share with the state. So if we get the higher percentage at 98%, then, we're hoping that with the eligible costs, that a lot of that will come from the state.
Yep.
Now, you're saying that if we get this 98%, is it as if we get that, then we can go under the stadium authority with this to help with the design and all that?
Yeah,
Is that what triggers the right to use the stadium authority?
No.
I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, the Stadium Authority is through the Build to Learn Act funding, which we've already applied for as part of the design for this project. So that doesn't trigger the Stadium Authority. Like I said, it's almost two separate pots
So
of
that's
funding
gonna
coming from the
happen.
state for this
Yes.
part. Exactly. That's essentially a guarantee that's going
They
to happen.
set aside money for school systems, and because we've been working with the IAC throughout this project, they've already set aside monies for Kent County, so that money is there waiting for us for this project. And so we would access that to help us fund the project as well.
Good.
So, back to fiscal year 25, which you see before you, the plan is going to be to utilize 100% of the state funding that's available first, and then it'll fall upon to the county after that. So we have a draw schedule attached. I'm not sure. It's on numbered page 5 of the plan, if that helps you. It's something to look at. It's an estimated draw schedule throughout the entire project, but what we're looking at today are the design portion of it. So basically you can see that, we'll have the county portion for fiscal year '25 is estimated to be about 1.67 million, and then it'll be decreased significantly the remainder of the project, essentially. It's front-loaded because obviously most of the design services are about, upfront and at the beginning of the project. And then obviously we'll have to keep them on all the way through, to oversee construction and any other changes that may, come about, and, make sure that they're, with us the whole way through. But the majority of their funding comes right up front. So like I said, we're looking at about 1.67 million for the first year in fiscal year '25, about 440,000 the following 2 fiscal years in '26 and '27, and then the remainder, about 13,000 in fiscal year '28 for those fees. So, that pretty much covers the fiscal year '25 request that you see in front of you. As I said, it's majority, for the architectural engineering fees. Next year, provided we can continue on forward, would be the first year of actual construction funding that we are applying for. So next year's request, would be significantly larger than this year's.
Right. And as I said, if we are able to get this through the legislature, this amount that we're projecting right now is the 50-50 share. Obviously, that would change if we were to be able to get the 98%. And then if we were already, funding part of it, then that credit would come to us and we'd proceed with that.
And just to touch on that, when we did confirm today that if they do agree to increase the state percentage, it is retroactive for the entire project. So it's not as of when they make that decision and forward, it goes back to the design. So essentially, as if we can get increased state funding, then even the county's portion that you see here will greatly decrease from what you see right here.
And just estimation with regard to this project, it's been a multi-year project for us. This was something that we identified in our 6-year facility strategic plan that we put into place, and we identified all of the buildings that we wanted to do work on. We started out with work at replacing the roof and HVAC at Garnett. Then we moved to Rock Hall. We replaced the roof, and we did a minor renovation project there. And then we moved on to Galena, replaced the roof and HVAC, and did a minor renovation project at that school. And now we're completing the roof at Kent County High School. So we've been really proud of the fact that we've been able to stay true to our strategic plan and check off all of the boxes and improve all of the educational facilities for our kids in every school. So this was the major project. This was our blue ribbon project that we held off to the end. And it's a situation where if we cannot construct a new school, then we're going to have to do something to that school because the systems are in bad shape. The roof is in bad shape. The HVAC is in bad shape. There's so many things that are in failure mode with that particular school. So it's one of those things that we're going to have to bite the bullet at some point and do some work, whether it's to replace, which obviously is our first choice, and do that, or put good money out for bad and then renovate an old building, and then you still have an old building. So our choice is to replace the school. We would build new on the opposite side of the property in Chestertown, and then once we complete the new construction, then we would demo the old building, and then that would turn into different parking and different areas that would make the building more accessible for our parents and our buses and those kinds of things. So addressing a lot of the deficiencies that were outlined in the feasibility study that we completed.
Well, that's certainly encouraging news if we could come up with a 98% rate for building that school. I mean, I don't know what you call it, but I would call it, down Rock Hall is a no-brainer.
It's a dream, right? Yeah, we're going to work really hard, and had an opportunity to talk with Senator Hershey today at the Sultana ribbon cutting, and he was saying that he wanted some assurances that Dr. Lever was going to be able to testify, and I said, oh, yeah, he's going to be there. And he said, well, he's definitely a strong and powerful voice in Annapolis, and having him as our consultant and his ability to speak on our behalf in terms of why this is important for the school system, for the county, and also for our students, and why the change in the state participation makes sense. He felt like it was going to be a powerful position for us to take to Annapolis. So we're hopeful, and, you know, we're going to give it our best shot. We're going to, like I said, we're going to pre-file. Delegate Grice feels like pre-filing the legislation is going to be in our best interest. So we've got to pre-file by November the 20th, which we plan to do, and do everything we can to get it through.
Well, good, certainly good luck in your efforts, and if we can do anything, we'll be more than happy to participate
A
as
letter
well.
would be great.
So when it comes to the demo, is that included in the,
In the overall
Overall
project
project.
cost, yeah.
I just have a question. So it seems like, I mean, all these numbers are a lot of money to me, which mean, and there's a lot of money to the taxpayers of this
Right.
county. Are there, the school that we're building, is it its own concept, its own design? I mean, there's got to be, there's schools built all over the country.
And I know
Right.
you're going to ask the same question.
And why can't we
Rod.
just, even if it's in, I don't, Iowa, why can't we just say we want that school here, and that should cost, I mean, you can buy plans for a house out of a book for pennies on the dollar compared to what an architect draws.
Well, Dr.
Al-
Lever can probably answer that the best, but
Albert's
we,
asking the same question. We're getting ready to, wastewater treatment facility we're
Right.
talking about possibly building. We build them all over this country. There's got to be a set of plans somewhere sitting on a shelf, just
Right.
like we want. But we're going to have to go through and spend $1 million to design it.
right. Well, because there's a number of reasons for that. And in my last state where I was superintendent, a lot of those same qualifying or requirements were in place. You have to demonstrate, you have to be able to build according to projected enrollment, and you have to build, you might go ahead. You know what, I'm going to turn it over to the expert for the response.
Thank you, Dr. Kell. So this question has come up again and again and again. I was with Prince George's County Public Schools for 6.5 years. We did repeat designs there, and we did save money by doing repeat designs, and that was within one school system. We did a prototype, and then that has been repeated probably 6, 7 times. Anne Arundel County does the same thing. But the prototype was very much adapted to the specific educational requirements of Prince George's County, just like the Anne Arundel prototype was adapted to the requirements of Anne Arundel County. And that's where architects come in, is working with staff, instructors, administrators to make sure that the design is appropriate for the specific school system. There is also a requirement from the state and probably the local county as well that for a project of this size and complexity has to have an architectural stamp on it. The architect carries liability for the entire project. The architect comes in with a team which includes the civil engineer, the structural engineer, and maybe specialists. Even if you have a repeat design, and we could say take a design from Minnesota, it would still have to be site adapted, and the architect registered in Maryland who would assume liability would still have to go through the entire project from beginning to end to make sure that it met Maryland's requirements and that they were willing to put their stamp on it. So the savings would actually diminish. Site design is unique because every site is different. Soil conditions are different. So structural design is also different. Mechanical design is different because you're dealing with different climatic conditions, different orientation, which affects the HVAC loading and so the design of the HVAC system. And then the educational program is also going to be unique. I can't think of too many middle schools in the state that are designed for 500, 520 students. Most of them are designed for, let's say, 900 to about 1,200 students. So this will be a much smaller school. That by itself means a change of design. So these are some of the reasons why you can't just take something off the shelf. You know, and that question does come up often, you know.
I'd like to sit down with you at a table by ourselves and discuss some of this stuff, but I don't want to do it tonight because we'll be here all night
Right.
long. But
And
there are a lot of
there's-
easy answers to a lot of those questions that you, or a lot
Right.
of those
But there's a lot of-
proposals that you just,
Right.
or scenarios that you just laid out.
But there's some specific requirements that we have to abide by with the state, and those are kind of the restrictions that we have to adhere to as well. So that kind of puts it in a nutshell.
Dr.
I mean,
Cash,
it seems
I'm just
easy.
We're
cheap,
not
that's all.
raising this
No.
question because of
No,
this
but because-
particular school.
no,
It's just
no,
something that doesn't
Right.
make sense to us. If
Right.
we're- I mean, we're getting ready, like I said, we got a sewage treatment facility we're talking about building. They build them all the time. I mean, I don't know, nothing, ours isn't, it's all set about how many gallons a day it can handle, and to have to redesign that wheel every time.
Right.
Right.
Just to somebody outside just doesn't make sense to us.
Right, and what I would say is you'll see a lot of similarities in the elementary schools here in Kent County, because once that design was established here in Kent County, they pretty much took that same design and rebuilt it in different communities like Millington and Galena, and you'll see, you
Galena
know.
High School and Rock Hall
Yeah,
High School
very
looked
much
like
the
they were
same.
stamped out of a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
They were identical.
Right.
But if they paid design fees for both of them, that didn't make any sense at all.
Right.
Anyhow,
anyway.
that's,
right, that was just a.
Yeah. So, anyways, so this is our capital improvement plan, and we're asking for your approval of the capital improvement plan, and then we would ask that you provide us with a letter of support, a qualified letter of support, and we would need that letter in the hands of the IAC by November the 20th. And then we would upload it. I mean, if you can provide it to us sooner, the sooner the better, but the drop dead date for the letter has to be received by November the 20th. Yes,
It's November 30th.
November 30th.
I think it's
Okay.
the 30th. We're back
Okay.
to-
Yeah,
That's
it's
what-
the final
Oh,
submission
sorry.
is November
That's what
30th.
we read.
November
Yep,
30th,
yep,
sorry. I was trying to move up the date. Okay, November the 30th, we need the letter of support, but if you can give it to us by November the 20th, we would love that.
Any other questions?
I have no more.
Thank you.
Well, this is a very exciting, all this news is very exciting to me anyhow, and I'm sure to the other two commissioners as well. It's long overdue. I'm actually surprised that you come this far that quick, so soon. But anyhow, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the FY 2025 capital improvement plan as presented here tonight, along with the Built to Learn Act funding for the Kent County Middle School project.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank
I
you.
would also like to make another motion, because I think each one of us received a draft letter from Dr. Couch, basically a letter of intent and support. And I would recommend, or like to make a motion, that we sign that letter if it's available tonight. Sign it and give it to Dr. Couch so that we don't delay anything that might jeopardize this project.
Right. Yeah, I provided to you as a draft, so I can certainly send it without the,
I mean, I know you're probably going to want
Yeah.
legal to look at it, but
right.
it's a pretty simple letter, and it doesn't, if something unforeseen happens, it's pretty clear in the letter that, you know, those types of things sometimes do happen.
Right,
But it's our full intent to support your project.
thank you.
And the unforeseen would be if the state says no, and we go back to the 50-50, then we've got to go back to the drawing board as well.
Absolutely, and that's why I wrote it in such a way that it's very qualified and with being very optimistic that we're going to come out with some positive news from Annapolis.
Very good.
And if you're more comfortable, Shelley, with letting Tom look at it first, I'm fine with that.
We would have to finalize it, get it on letterhead, definitely have legal review.
But I would like to have it in Dr. Couch's hands by early November, if we can do that. There's no sense to wait.
Yeah.
You know, so many times government pushes stuff to the very last minute. And to me, that jeopardizes what we're trying to do here, so.
Right. And I think it will help us.
I would agree with the, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
would agree with the sheriff. I mean, I don't know whether we need to make that motion now, but I would like to, I would personally like to see that letter.
We can-
If their
we can bring
deadline
it
is the
back
30th,
next
I'd like
week
you to
or
have
the
it the
week
1st,
after,
that way
and
you
it's
don't have to worry about
Prior to November.
us holding the
Yeah, well, I mean, we can get that, we can review that within a matter of a couple of days, not with a month. So I don't see why we can't get it done by the end of the week.
So we could have it next
Next
Tuesday.
meeting.
Yeah, for
We
next,
can put it on
put it on the agenda for next
for
week.
next week or the week
Yeah.
after.
We'll
Right,
make
but
it
it's
happen.
still by the beginning of November.
Yeah.
And as I was going to state, and I'm sorry for interrupting, I was just going to note that I think that would be very helpful for us as we pre-file as well for the legislation, knowing that our county commissioners support the project. And I think that will help us as well when we go forward with requesting a change for state participation.
Any additional letters or testimony needed?
We
Don't
definitely
hesitate.
might need that.
I don't like going to Annapolis.
I don't either, but,
But don't
but we have to
hesitate to
go.
call.
Yeah, I don't know why it only takes him about 15 minutes to get there.
Well, he's he's former law enforcement, he knows how to drive fast. Right, well, I appreciate your help for that, and we certainly may need that level of support, but that's very, very promising, and I thank you for that as well.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Public Works Director, Mike Moulds. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing all right. Good evening, everybody. All right. A couple things on the agenda for you to consider. The first one on your agenda is a request to piggyback on a Howard County Department of County Administration contract with Alpha Space Control Company for FY 2024 to provide the line striping on various Kent County roadways that are surface treated and paved. We have a budget for line paving of $50,000. This contract would be in force. The current contract would expire March 31st, 2024, and it has option for renewal. We've used Alpha Space Control for a number of years. They're very competitive in the market, and we're making a recommendation to award that contract for the budget amount, and then utilize it as we can. We land stripe also roads that are paved, obviously, but also there are other roads that already have line striping that's worn out. And we'll utilize that, what funds we have in the budget to improve that line striping for safety. Any questions?
I don't have any.
It's within the budget, and I'd like to make a motion to piggyback on the March 23rd, 2023 Howard County Department of County Administration contract number PA 0962023 under the same pricing terms and conditions with the Alpha Space Control Company Incorporated for roadway line striping not to exceed the amount of $50,000 with the option to renew for 5 one-year options.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. Next item on your agenda is an item that we requested to, at the 9/26 meeting, to revisit this agenda item after a 3-week time period related to the granary building at Turner's Creek. I believe the architectural board was looking at to try to get a study done on the feasibility for grant work. And there was a deadline of this meeting to do something about that.
I assume you have two.
I know we have a couple people here that would like to speak about the project. You want to come up and tell us what you've learned or what you...
Hope
Since our last meeting, back 2 days after last time we met, we had a call with Preservation Maryland, who's a nonprofit advocacy organization for the state for historic preservation. And we worked out a deal with them to have the firm of Simpson, Gumparts, and Hager, which is a preservation architectural firm, an engineering firm out of Washington, D.C. Preservation Maryland will do it, will pay 100% of the cost to do an analysis for this. That's kind of the step one in terms of being able to, what's it going to cost, rather than doing a guesswork. You know, what's the cost, what's the feasibility of doing any further restoration or rehabilitation work. That has been scheduled for October the 25th from 11:30 to 12:30. In the very near future. So we did our best to schedule it as soon as possible, but we are dealing with a firm out of Washington, D.C. Now, once that is completed, I've provided a list of the grant programs that you can use in tandem with one another to help put the pieces together to be able to do something. And then the second set of documents that was provided is a letter of interest that was provided to us earlier in the year from Pax Maritime out of Havre de Grace, who is interested in using this site for cultural heritage and tourism, you know, as a site to be able to provide tours or work. I mean, they work closely with Skipjack Martha Lewis, which I'm sure you're familiar with, out of Havre de Grace. So they have a background with this. They have worked, I don't know them personally, but they have worked and met with the county tourism team, you know, for this. So I think that, in my view, that's the most important thing, is to be able to find a user, an end user, so that you're not just dumping money into the project. Any building has a maintenance cost that you're going to have to deal with, including this building. It's an old building. You're going to have to, but having a user for the building, I think, is very important. So I think we have one that, you know, could be vetted, you know, with your authorization. You know, going further, I mean, a 3-week time period isn't enough time for us to, you know, this really needs to go through a more formal process. But in my view, by having an end user, by having an engineering analysis that could be done at no cost to the county, I think this is an appropriate step forward for us. And then the last thing that I did print out for you is a copy from the 2018 comprehensive plan, which, when I went through, and I was involved in the writing of the plan, but I had to go back through because it's been 6 years or so. And it does explicitly state that the county, you know, is to preserve sites that it's on county-owned property. So, I mean, just as a reminder, but we think we can be an appropriate partner for you. We have the ability. I've done grant writing with some of these grant programs. I have experience with the grant teams in these organizations that we can help provide you at the lowest cost possible a way to adaptively reuse this piece of historic property. So I hope I've, you know, fulfilled everything you've asked for in the past 3 weeks, and at least to the best of our ability anyway.
The department was contacted about making arrangements for the 25th for their engineers to come out and look at the facility. So we're going to have somebody there to open the fence up if they choose to.
Okay.
So we would be, I guess you're here asking for an extension of time. Now, and we don't, so that you can have this taken care of, and then what would your plan be after that? Let's say that,
sure,
that this architect or whoever comes and takes a look at the facility.
So the firm would come out and they would provide a report with, you know, what's wrong with the building, provide that laundry list, what's wrong with the building and how to stabilize the building, and what the estimated cost based upon, you know, the going rate for cost per square foot and what needs to be specifically done to the building. And we use that as a basis to be able to apply for grant funding. And in the meantime, is pursuing with this third party for potential, it would obviously require a third party agreement, MOU, with the county to be able to use a county facility. I'm no different than the Farm Museum, the Ag Center and everything like that. but that's what I view as an appropriate path forward, that, if you're willing to entertain that for us.
Does Mr. Gilchrist still do?
No, he does not. So he, Eastern Shore Land Conservancy, I'm not entirely sure what, and I helped him get started, actually, because we used to own the property. So yeah, he's no longer involved. He's fully retired.
Okay.
So, from
Okay, good for
Eastern
him.
Shore Land
I
Conservancy.
think he leads some nature hikes or
Does
something.
he? Yeah.
But nothing
does that.
down.
He's a
councilman. for
having
Badger.
having a group like that, and I think that's something similar to what this group is proposing. I mean, I participated and helped Mr. Gilchrist when he got started, when, he had kayaks and canoes there, and he would take school kids out. And I thought it was a very good experience for young people in the county to be able to experience.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful site, and it's important to have kids go out there and be able to experience it itself.
I spoke with the third party, and one of the updates to that plan is that they also intend on doing services for veterans. And he wanted me to expressly say that, Turner's Creek is very central to the Delmarva Peninsula with regard to the services in Hartford and Cecil County, and also having people come up from Delaware. So this is kind of a central location to bring people up to. And he has an interest in using the entire site, including maybe consulting with Mr. Gilchrist about how he ran the center there so that he can do it both
Right.
for tours and to make sure he's expressly using it for veterans to use the property
And,
the
and
best way possible.
And I went on his Facebook page, because again, I don't know him personally, so I can't say one way or the other, but he's actually already led tours out there, and he's posted photographs. So he's taken, he's done photography tours with different groups out there, so, and again, this may not be the person, but I think you have an interested party who is interested in working with us, and I think it's worth a shot to be able to explore it further, again, with your concurrence, of course. And you could, as part of an MOU, you could have a maintenance agreement in terms of, certain routine maintenance can be provided potentially by him or by that, whatever company it is, but, and foundation, but.
I would be in favor of somebody using it,
Yes.
as long as they didn't interfere. I mean, there's a lot of use down there now.
Yep, absolutely.
With their local water.
One of the biggest
And
used
I
sites.
want to make sure that
Yep,
is
absolutely.
maintained as important as anything moving forward.
Yep.
So, and I think that we can work through all of that. We've done it.
That could be part of the, whatever MOU and grant agreement, whatever you provide.
I'll be interested to see the report that the people put together as to just what it would take to put that back, because I don't know how we would use, and you certainly can't use it in the conditions it's in.
Absolutely
because
not, no,
it's
and
that's
fully
the
agree.
reason we're here to start with.
Absolutely.
But,
But Mr. Gilchrist used to use the Latham House, to be able to store his canoes and kayaks and all his life jackets and everything like that. And, I think something of that nature, or even having an office, I think not having, it would be outrageously expensive to put bathrooms or anything like that in there, and I think that would be completely off the table. But, using it in a state for storage or having an office out of there, I think would be a reasonable and, less costly solution, that would enable it to be used and preserved for the county.
Well, we're in this situation because of the way the building is anyhow.
Yeah.
And a while back, early on in our tenure,
Right.
we directed Mike to put a fence around it, which he
Yep.
did,
And I understand the reason.
because of liability and safety concerns. I too would be very interested to hear what the firm says on October 25th, I think you said, right?
Yes, yes.
So I would like to get a report back on that from somebody, either Mike or
Yeah.
you or
Yes, sir.
someone in writing to see exactly what it is. But when I looked at the documents that you provided us here tonight,
Yep.
there's numerous opportunities for maybe some grant funding that might help offset the cost dramatically. But when I look at this is obviously not up to date, because a lot of these grant deadlines
Yeah,
are as of 2023, March, May, June.
I copied and pasted from the earlier one that did.
And I can appreciate that,
Yeah.
but can we get some kind of verification that There's going to be
needs
some grant money available from these organizations or
Yes,
groups
yes. So
in
some of-
2024.
Absolutely. So some of them, like the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the Bart is True, that's done 3 times a year. That's done February, June, and October. They just had a deadline in October the 1st. Some of them are done on an as-needed basis. So Preservation Maryland has the ability to do grant funding on an emergency basis. MHT, Maryland Historical Trust, or the Maryland Heritage Area Capital Authority, that's also through MHT. They do it once a year. It's state funded, that they use a portion of the transfer tax revenue. They do it every year, once a year. But I could provide, when I went through some of these, they haven't announced, because it's typically, like, for instance, the MHT one's typically in May or June, when the application period is.
So we need to be on it.
Yes, that's absolutely correct, yes.
The question for the consultant, they have an idea when, after their visit on the 25th, when they'd have a report?
Yep, and I was going to talk about, so I would, it's not going to be the next day. But we would work with them to, and I offered to pay, a portion of the cost or whatever, to get it in a timely manner. So if it takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we'll ensure that we get it to you as soon as possible, and we will forward it directly to Shelley so that she can have it to you.
So they haven't given a date, a time?
They have not, and I think.
Meantime, you'll be talking to some of these agencies about the possibility of funding something if.
So I've already talked to some of them. So in the spring, for instance, in the National Trust, Nikki Van, and from the National Trust, I've already spoken with her. I spoke to the National Park Service just to determine that this site is eligible for, because this was a site during the War of 1812, the British landed there and commandeered some folks to go to Georgetown. It's eligible for National Park Service funding, because I wanted to ensure, a couple of them were, I just wanted to ensure that it was eligible for the funding. So I've already spoken with some of these.
I thought I remember reading something recently about this in an email, where the report that they're going to prepare on October 25th might be available by late November.
I can't speak for them, so,
We don't have a date from them at this time.
Yeah.
This
The
was
email
the
you may
email,
be referring.
from Jen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I asked, because the appointment was for the 25th and our meeting was today, I had requested that we move this meeting, our review to
Okay.
November so that we could provide all that at that time.
Yeah.
We don't have a date just yet. Hopefully on the 25th, they can give us an example of when they can
provide it.
provide.
And with the consultant, are they going to give a cost estimate as far as the
I-
stabilization?
That's
and
what I would
renovation?
ask, yes. So in terms of
Okay.
what needs to be done and what is the estimated cost based upon what their estimated cost of that work would be.
And I guess to be clear, stabilization is just trying to keep it from falling down? kind
Yeah,
of?
stabilization is different from rehabilitation.
Yes,
That's
so they're
correct.
looking at both costs, okay.
So that's what I would ask
think we want to do
for.
something nice with it. We just don't want to.
No, you don't want to be in this position 5 or 10 years from now, kicking the can down the road.
I won't be in this position 10 years.
And at the same time, I heard.
Third time around, Mr. Fithian.
I heard one of my fellow commissioners say too, that we don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the current use
Absolutely not, no.
of the
It's a-
area there, so.
Nope.
It's also beneficial that third party is talking about using the entire complex, so we're not talking about asking him to come in and solely use that specific space. He wants to be able to be involved in possibly using the Latham House or engaging the Ag Museum as they have programs. So he wants to kind of take on what Senator Gilchrist had used it for. So I think there's some options there to move any of the traffic into more spaces than just the landing itself.
Yeah, I mean, this was a village at one time, and, you have a number of historic buildings that don't really have a use right now, and that's, when a building doesn't have a use, that makes it really tough to justify providing county funding. So I think our hope is to provide a use so that, you're getting use out of your hard-earned county funding, so.
Well, I think we're all in agreement that we're
Okay.
going to give you time to have
I
this
appreciate
study
that.
done. Have this study done, and if you don't mind, after you talk to these people, maybe you
Okay.
could call our office.
Absolutely.
And give us an idea how long it's going to be
Absolutely.
before
That's
we
very
get the
fair.
report. And anything else you learn along the way,
Absolutely.
be sure to pass it on to
Yeah.
the office.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the county is, again, I think, you know, the state programs, for instance, whether it's through MHT or the Maryland Heritage Area Authority, require a 50-50 match. But if you partner that with a grant from Preservation Maryland and/or the National Trust, you have a means of putting together a local match and a state match with minimizing the actual amount of, your match might be 10% or something like that, so that it's really minimizing, you know, any money that the county has to use.
Well, look,
So,
that place has sat there for a lot of years, and we don't, I mean, we're
Right.
having a conversation about it because it got
Yes.
it got in bad shape.
Yep.
So if there's something we can do to save it and make it worthwhile, we're gonna give you time to do that, I think.
And we want to be a partner with that and do our part and do anything we can to support you in that.
I think I'm speaking for us all.
You are absolutely, Jeremy.
Okay.
We appreciate your
Yeah.
time and efforts,
Yeah.
with your colleagues.
Do you know what time they're gonna go up there on the 25th?
11:30, right?
11:30 is the appointment on the
11:30.
25th.
Right. I probably will not be there. I have to work in Smyrna, but,
I'll be
Oh,
present.
What's that, is
Jenna-
that Friday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday, okay.
so, and you'll be there, Mike?
Yep.
So, I mean, you'll be able to hear from him as
I
well.
join you myself, but we're looking forward to the
Yeah,
report.
yep, absolutely.
All right?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you for your
I'd like
time.
to make a motion that we table this for now until we get the report.
Second.
And,
Thank you.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Ayes
Always a
have it.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next thing on your agenda is a request to award a contract to Chesapeake Construction Materials to perform the wood waste processing for the FY '24 at the Nicholson landfill site. As you're aware, the county accepts wood waste in the form of brush and tree limbs at the Nicholson landfill site. Material is stored in piles and is annually processed into wood chips and made available for landscape cover to the public. In the past, the wood processing was performed by Maryland Environmental Service, taking advantage of a $32,000 Mid-Shore Regional Recycling Program grant that the county had. With the recent agreement amendment with MES on July 11th, the county is now responsible for the full cost of wood processing. We got two proposals, one from MES to do under an intergovernmental agreement, because it was a short time period between when the new agreement was signed and when the time came up right now to process this wood. That price was based on a calculation of the cubic yards of material that had to be processed. The price that we got was more than our budget is for it. We have $60,000 set aside. We contact a second contractor, Chesapeake Construction Materials, for their proposal. The owner previously worked for MES doing this work in Kent County, so they're familiar with the operation as MES is. They provided a proposal, smaller cubic yards, and we recognize that trying to measure the volume of brush piles is very difficult. The key that we are recommending to award to Chesapeake is based on the price per cubic yard. So they have a lower price per cubic yard in terms of the determination and going with them. So as a result, their price is significantly less that we've got. So their cost estimated is $36,775, which is lower than our budget. So we're looking at a grinding rate per cubic yard between the two of $1.35 less. And we are also aware that Queen Anne's County is elected to use Chesapeake Construction Materials for their grinding this year. That's our recommendation to award that.
Well, it's obviously, as far as I'm concerned, obviously it's a no-brainer which one we take because there's a tremendous difference in the price, but it does beg the question of, I mean, we're supposed to be partners with MES, one of these landfills or mid-shore landfills and stuff. How can a private company beat them by, how come we were never notified, I wonder, when this change in, they were giving us this $60,000,
$32,000.
$32,000, and then we just heard about it now. It's,
Well, it was a ongoing the last several years, and Marty and I had dealt with them on that.
I'm not blaming you.
Oh,
I'm
no, I
wondering
know
about
you.
MES is why all of a sudden now, we're supposed to be partners in all this stuff, and now they,
There was an amendment to the contract that was signed, the MODI
Obviously,
contract.
yeah.
When would that have been signed? Probably the end of June.
Well, July is when the contract, I think I noted, when July is when
Right.
it was signed.
And it has to do with the
Yeah.
fees that are collected to run the MERP program, the recycling program, that MES, there were certain things that they were obligated to provide, and then other things that they opted to provide on a per county. And now they're still providing the items that they're required to provide, but now the counties have a little bit of flexibility in choosing which optional items they would like to take advantage of. But we're not gonna know how much that is until the end of the fiscal year.
We're still using MES. We've got an intergovernmental agreement with them for handling the CFCs, the Freon that's taken out of the air conditioners and refrigerators. So we did that with them. Fortunately, we were able to do that quickly because we were getting backed up as a result of the transition. So that's happened. And then the other thing, we had the tire turn in. So they have a contractor that comes in and is able to leave a bin for us to put the tires in. We were able to continue to use them under an intergovernmental agreement. So there are two things we're dealing with. It's just a situation here where they probably have a change in operators because this other person spun off, and I think we're getting advantage of the experience of that operator, at least for this year, that we're getting, I feel, a good price.
that's an awful expensive piece of equipment they
It
use
is.
to do that. This company has purchased one of those
Yep.
type? Wow.
Yeah, there was some discussion, if you remember, President Fithian, back about trying to buy our own, and the decision was to do it because the maintenance of those things is
Wasn't it $500,000 or something?
easily. Yeah.
Easily, yeah.
Very dangerous pieces of equipment, so you really need to have.
Oh,
people
yeah,
that know how to
that's
use them.
quite a piece of equipment, all right. Okay,
I'll make a motion to award and sign a contract with Chesapeake Construction Materials to perform FY 2024 annual wood waste processing at the Nicholson landfill as a qualified, experienced contractor at a more competitive grinding rate of $3.65 per cubic yard for an estimated cost of $36,775.
Second.
have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. The next thing on your agenda is a renewal, extension agreement with Mr. Frank Dill for use of his farm for spray irrigation for the Wharton wastewater treatment plant. There's a 5-year agreement that is going to be expiring at the end of this year, and we are looking to renew that for another 5 years. This agreement's been renewed for a number of years, I think at least 3 times, I believe. So, and it's very important. It's environmentally a good approach for the county to avoid having to discharge into streams. It has a reuse capability because Mr. Dill benefits from the irrigation water that we supply, whether it's raining or not. And so we'd like to get that agreement extended. We did build into the budget a 5% increase after the 5 years that we've had him to keep his interest in the project. With your approval, Mr. Dill's already signed the agreements. We will also have to submit that to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation, which has a, what would you call it, a lease, not a lease, but an agreement. License agreement for the property, so they have to also consent to it, which they have done in the past.
Just from my knowledge, Mike, what exactly are we spraying on the field?
It is-
George, on
Yeah,
the
the
sewage
effluent from the
treatment
wastewater
plant.
treatment plant.
The absolutely cleaned water.
That thing actually, when I was here when that was done, that thing actually made national headlines when we did that project because the downside of all your sewage treatment plants is discharging it into the bay that we're trying to clean up. And so this is now, anytime we get a chance, they spray it on a field, which that's growing something like corn, feed
Something-
corn and stuff, something that you're not gonna be
Non-human
directly eating.
consumption.
That reminds me, public TV did a television episode.
Oh, yeah, it was
That's right.
made, and it actually made, it was in national, papers and stuff, plus it was a short program about it. It was a big deal. I just wonder how many more of those have happened since, because I
I
don't
know a
know.
number of them have,
Do you?
because one of the crops that are grown often with this spray irrigation is Christmas trees.
Yep.
Nobody's consuming the Christmas trees, so.
Spray irrigation is very popular. It's used down in Florida, out in the
Hence
west.
the aroma of
things
the
like
Christmas
that.
tree.
Come on. But it's a high level of treatment. We have a membrane treatment system there at the plant. And then we use the lagoons to store the water, so we have capacity for spray irrigation. And then it is applied. There's a permit for the discharge. We monitor the sodium content of the water, so it doesn't build up in the soils. So it's a very safe, proven method of recycling water.
And there's certain times of the year, like when the ground's frozen, I don't think you can do it, can you?
Correct.
It's gotta be done when the ground can absorb that water that you're spraying.
Right, our permit allows us to discharge to Morgan Creek in the wintertime to cover that.
So really, this is in place of a farmer putting in a well
Yes,
on a farm.
yep.
I'd like to make a motion to approve signing the 5-year extension agreement for the Wharton Spray irrigation fields with Franklin Dill and the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. The next item was informational that you had requested at a prior meeting to provide a description of the process where we review for water or sewer service requests. So I put together a description there and a little flow chart for it. This was a result of some discussion with the Toll Park resolution approval. So I don't know if you had any questions on the process that I can answer.
I'm not sure that I have any questions about well, I do have some questions about the process, but let's save that for another time, because
Okay.
I'll probably come talk to you unless my colleagues want to join me. I mean, I'd like to talk to you, because there's some other properties. We've got, this is one of those things sometimes where, we've got Lover's Lane, for example.
Yep,
And
familiar with
that we had an issue there, and we got that worked out. And there's sewer allocations sitting there that are probably not going to be used, or they haven't been used. And then we've got other people with land that abuts it, or that would really want to use it, but because they didn't have a dwelling on the place prior to that, it's of no, so we're sitting on allocations that we use them to pay for the systems, but then we're not allowed to use them to pay for the systems. It's just, I struggle with that.
I'm with you. We've had previous discussions about this with the cases we've got. I'm not a fan of it either, but the problem, the way I look at this thing is, what you've got is, with this document here, is an agreement between the county and the state as to how things are going to be done. So in order to do anything different that's not in that agreement, both parties have to agree to it. That's the rub with the thing. And there's these rules that I've tried to outline for you in that process that have been in place for a long time. Goes back through even previous versions of that comprehensive plan. But I've always been a proponent that you need some growth in your water and sewer systems of new customers in order to help offset the increases in inflation and the aging of systems where you have to replace equipment to try to keep those rates reasonable. And we don't have that capability. That's why I'm very interested in seeing how the Milton project would go to provide that kind of thing. But it's and with regulations, we just start talking about how much treatment goes into these plants, technology-wise and cost, to be able to get that water more and more purified. There's constant discussions about water systems, about, plastics and other contaminants that keep it getting added to the regulations that cost more to be able to treat that water. So it's a constant battle between technology, regulation, and aging equipment that we've got.
What do you think if I said, or we said, let's have somebody from MDE come over here and have a discussion about this? Because it drives me crazy that we're sitting on allocations, we're spending money on these systems like we've just finished talking about, but yet our hands are tied. I mean, when they call them denied access lines, that one coming out of Millington, what are we saving? It's surrounded by houses. There's no, I'd like to know what it, I mean, I can see a denied access line if we're trying to save something. If there's a historical farm or something that you don't want to make sure there's no development on it or something, I understand all that. But these things are going by something, just, well, Toll Park. I mean, obviously, we should be able to hook up to the system. Makes no, but it's a denied access line. Because somebody across, I think it's that farm across the road from it, is in some type of preservation. And I understand all that, and you're safeguarding that. But this whole darn line shouldn't be denied because of something that's going, if we're not, I understand, don't put it on that piece of property.
Right.
Don't allow any hookups. That makes perfect sense. To say no to everything around it doesn't make any sense to me, especially when we're stuck for paying for it.
Right.
There's 3 properties that I'll show you one day I get in town, on Lover's Lane alone, that people are begging to be able to hook up to.
Oh, I get requests all the time from different properties, real estate people wanting to selling a property as to whether there's service available. And we have to go through that process that I provided with you to determine whether they can or they can't. But those decisions were made and incorporated into that, I'll call it an agreement between the state and the county that's there. So you have to get the state and the county to say, we are okay with making a change to it. And a perfect example is Toll Park. Toll Park, the state's saying, okay, yeah, we can understand that. It's in conformance with the comprehensive plan, make that adjustment. It doesn't promote development. It's a benefit to the public because we're providing restrooms at a park that can now, that's getting state funding to be able to provide more improvements. So the state is now in the position to say, okay, we agree to make that change that the county is also asking for. So you get that two together. When you try to bring someone in from MDE, and you're really talking about the Department of Planning as well, they're going to be looking at that kind of policy, which is replicated in every other county in the state. So you got to watch when you're give it here, let's say, and then somebody over in Howard County says, wait a minute, we want to do that too, and dink, and then the dominoes start falling.
Well, Kent County is not a county that we're bombarded with growth. I mean, we're entirely different than Howard County and some of these others that, but I would love to have someone talk to us about this and see if there's not some way that we could take a second look at these denied access. And I don't even know that Eadsville is a denied access line. It was just a project that was built with no growth in it. And they didn't, or something along, my memory serves me, that's what it was.
But most of our projects where we've had these lines go in, the reason the project was started because of failing septic systems.
Failed septic systems,
Right.
yeah.
It wasn't looked at as a growth area. Wharton would be an example where we had a growth area defined, because there's areas around the Wharton process that are still open for potential development. Kennedyville's another example too, where there's areas set aside for that growth, because the comprehensive plan of the county established those areas for growth, just like the Millington area is now that we're looking at. So that's where they want to see the growth go. They don't want to see it here, here, here in these little bits. And that's where the rub is in trying to get this done. I agree with you. I'd love to use all the allocations that we have available so that we can get more customers to help offset these rate increases that we have to deal with.
And that's the part that bothers me. We have to go to the public and say, we're going to raise your rates when we could sell the allocations, and we got allocations that we could sell, and then they tie our hands and won't let us do that.
Yeah.
It just, what I would suggest for tonight there, look, we're obviously going to support this Toll Park hookup, but I would like to be able to take the information you give me, write up some questions, we'll have a future discussion
Sure.
about it, if
Okay.
that's okay.
When I read the information that Mike provided, and maybe I misunderstood, but I understood by reading it that if the county wanted to use one of those denied access lines and it met certain specifications as listed in the regulations there, we could make the request to the state, and then they would review it, just like the toll park thing.
Yes,
So, I
And
mean, there
we've
is a
done
process,
that.
Correct.
there is a
Yes.
process.
the process
Yes.
is there, yes.
Correct.
We've done that numerous times.
Well, the one
since the
out
process.
there, before you get into Millington, the Nelson boy that came in here and wanted, I mean, you gotta show that, that it was it says an improved lot. And I can remember Tom Mason sitting where I'm sitting, and he said, improved, well, you know, you clear it off, you've improved it. Doesn't say anything about it's gotta be a house there. But this property had a building on it, it had a cement well, had pictures of it, I still got them. So in my world, it was an improved lot. So whether it was part of another lot or whether it wasn't, that piece of property had been improved prior to that system going down there. That's my argument.
Right.
And then you gotta show that it will, one of the four, that's the biggest hurdle to jump. And then you gotta prove that you can't get a perk test.
Well, you have to be adjoining the line. You can only
It's
get
gotta
one
be
lot from it.
adjoining the line,
We
which
have-
he is.
right, we have to have capacity, which we did. The
And
different, yeah,
I looked at, the only thing that stood in his way, I think, was the fact that somebody thought that it was part of another lot years ago and that the house was torn down and it was on another lot and that we were left with this piece or something. But it doesn't say in that paper, in that resolution, that it had to be an existing home there. It calls it an improved lot.
well, the thing you gotta watch is that you have to read the whole sentence. The thing is, it's an improved lot that has a failing septic system. The only way you can have a failing septic system for the Department of Health to say it's failing is there has to be a house there and has to have septic system. That's the rub. You gotta look at the whole sentence, and all four of those things have to be met, not just one of them.
Well,
That's the
like I
trick.
said, I won't take up tonight,
Sure,
but
sure.
I'd like to revisit it, and at some future date, but if you're here, if you want to talk about Toll Park, let's go.
Well, I'm, as far as Toll Park, let's get that resolution signed so I can get back to the state.
I'm arguing against something there that I obviously agree with.
Oh,
So
you're not arguing against
I was using
it
it
at
as
all.
an example of,
Yes.
So we've had the public hearing, and
Yes.
there's been no further comments, correct, after the time? So, it's before you to approve, and staff recommends approval.
so you want to make, do you have a motion for that, John?
Maybe.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-17 pertaining to the amendment of the Kent County Comprehensive Water and Sewage Plan as presented.
I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
That's all I had. Stay tuned for Tom talking about the village of Kennedyville. But if you had any
Go on.
questions, but do you have any other questions is what I guess I'm asking.
Okay,
We're good?
Thank you. Mr. President, we do have a deed before you for your approval, and the reason why you would need to approve the deed is because the county would have to agree to accept the facilities and the property that we're accepting. So, Public Works Director and the Planning Director and I spent a good bit of time on this, and we have a deed that we believe accomplishes what we need to accomplish. First, it's a deed for the streets. There is an exclusion for what's designated as Dewey's Lane, and the reason for that exclusion is the roadbed of Dewey's Lane is actually a part of the lots that it serves, so it's actually an easement and not a separately platted lot. So we're confident in that Dewey's Lane is actually owned by the lots that front it. It's part of the lots that front it, and the respective lots just have an easement over that roadway. All the other streets are not part of the lots. There's an alley as well that we believe it's appropriate for us to take title to. And then there's also a stormwater management area and an open space area that we believe it's appropriate for the county to take title to. And then finally, some of these streets are stubs, so there's an area designated on the plat as turnaround areas, temporary turnaround areas, because at some point there could be connectivity and further construction. So this deed would transfer to the county all the streets with the exception of Dewey's Lane, which really isn't a street, the turnaround areas, the stormwater management area, and the open space area, and also the alley. So it's our recommendation that you approve the deed, that Commissioner Fithian be authorized to sign the deed to accept the property for the county, and that I be authorized to present this deed to Carl Wright and get his signature on it, and then I can get it recorded.
One of the things from the discussions we had is that we wanted to make sure whatever Mr. Wright has, the county's taken over. So we got that.
Correct.
So then, because now the county is the lead HOA representative, would be the term to say.
Right.
At some point then, after the development occurs and that land gets turned over to the HOA and it operates as an independent group. It's like any developer would do.
Right,
Start
yeah, that's
to
my
do that.
point. So, but the lady that was here last week,
Kristen.
Yes, he is.
You're in charge of the HOA, that's what I was trying to say, correct? And how much, because when this happens in the private world, it's a certain amount of build-out, and then the HOA gets turned over.
That's correct, and that's in the declaration here, and we are not at that build-out level.
No.
So
It includes
our,
phase two.
yeah, so our analysis of it is, it's not the time for the HOA to take it because there hasn't been the build-out. So we would take it because we're stepping in the shoes of the developer. If we sell this project to a developer, we're going to transfer that to the developer. At some point, it's going to go to the HOA unless there is an amendment to the declaration. But assuming there's no amendment to the declaration, it's going to end up with the HOA, but it's not right to do that at this time because the requisite build-out has not occurred.
But it doesn't, but it also allows us to take care of the issues that, we'll now be the owners of it.
Correct.
And they'll be able to get their internet service provided.
Yeah, we can, if we're gonna own the platted streets, so then we could
We can give
grant
permission for them to,
for the utilities companies to go in there.
I think
Yes.
that's what your question was, wasn't it, dear? Yeah.
With the exception of Dewey's Lane, because that is part of the 3 lots that are along it. It's not a separately platted street.
Yeah, those 3 property owners can give permission for the
Correct.
fiber to go in.
Right, so if you want fiber up Dewey's Lane, those property owners would have the ability to give the permission.
What?
They just can't get it down Red Mill to get to Dewey's.
Well, we're gonna take Red Mill, so that'll be possible.
What are the HOA fees now?
They're $230 a year.
Okay, so the reason I'm bringing that up is because we as the county are gonna have to assume whatever build-out for lots, for the time being. If we own this thing, we'll have to assume those HOA fees.
Well, I think the developer had something in there that I don't think, there was a different, I don't think the developer was paying $230 per
No.
vacant lot.
Well, we don't have the HOA agreement.
Yeah, I have, and I don't think we're
Have it.
obligated to pay $230 per lot.
Yeah, the question I always had was
Well, how
whether
many
the
lots are
developer
left?
was doing it or not. Maybe he was supposed to, but the previous developer may not have been doing it.
That's what I'm saying.
And I
So
think he was only paying for 10, and Ms. Herman might be able to, do you remember?
That is correct. To my understanding, it was an agreement that was made by a previous
Right.
president that they would only pay for a portion
Right.
of the lots.
so what would
Right,
this,
so that
Haven't
was an,
received that in quite some
so
time.
what would this president be open to? So what would this president be open to? No, I guess what I'm saying is, you know, I don't know.
I guess taking into consideration the county is picking up some cost here with the
We are,
maintenance.
to include property tax. You know,
Correct.
not all the property tax even belongs to the county, but we owe the state their share of the property
Correct.
tax. And so it's in our best interest to move this project
I guess
along.
we want to work with you for sure. It's
Yeah.
just, you know, if these things, I want to make my other commissioners aware that they're, you know, when you join this HOA, if there are 50 more lots, I don't even, how many lots is
I
it?
think there may be 48 more.
Right, so
left in
50
phase
lots, you know,
Something
if it
like
was
that, yeah.
$200.
We're providing our fees in kind.
Okay. Well, I would agree, but
We're open
I'm,
to that discussion,
Right,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the HOA's not in a position to maintain the stormwater management and other things. So I think Mike has a good point about the in-kind contributions. And our plan is to, the county is not a land developer, so the plan would be to find a qualified land developer to take title to what the county has, with the exception of the streets, because they're gonna be public roads. So we would keep the streets and maintain the streets, but then we would deed the lots, the open space, stormwater management, the alley, all that to the developer, assuming a
Well-
developer comes along.
Well, we're talking about phase two, the developer will have responsibility to put the streets in,
that's right.
meet our requirements, and
And
then
then
off-
dedicate them to the county afterwards,
Right.
which is what should have happened here that did, but that's correct, because we have the stubs because there's unbuilt streets. So we would anticipate going forward, there's gonna be a public works agreement, there's going to be bonds and letters of credit posted right away, and there's gonna be recourse if this infrastructure is not built, that there would be a pot of money there from the bonds for the county or somebody else to come in and build it. So I don't think we're gonna be in this situation again.
Bill, Bill's got a question or comment.
I just wanted to say that in this situation, we actually are the developer, we're the declarant and majority owner. We're marketing the property, and I just feel like advising that we should probably be cautious about the sorts of things we do, because we have a dual role. We're both the regulating agency and the developer. We're marketing the property. Things that we do now can affect the value of the property, which we don't want to compromise. So, which is my way of saying, I think we should be careful about what kind of promises we make to the community, because we're trying to market the property. So that's all I wanted to add, so, thank you.
agree.
This is a real estate deal.
Our big focus right now is phase one, getting phase one up to snuff, which is already developed.
Well, that is a focus for us, is
Right.
to get it
We're
where the
ordering
homeowners
some
need-
replacement street trees. We're talking to Christie about no parking signs.
Yes, I just spoke with Daniel today about the parking signs, yeah. Just because we have some serious issues with parking in the neighborhood, and that in our bylaws is not something that I actually have any recourse to do anything about. It's just stated that we can't do certain things. So that's a bit of an issue as well. But if they become county roads, then I had spoken with somebody at the sheriff's office that then they could actually enforce the parking. The only question I did have about Dewey's Lane is that if the homes, there's 3 homes on Dewey's Lane, if they actually owned Dewey's,
They
the portion
do.
behind them, is the maintenance, if that road were to crumble or fail, is that actually something they're supposed to?
They would be, we looked
Because I
at,
do not believe that that is anything that they understand or
I-
believe they own.
well, we examined the plat, 3 of us examined the plat. And Dewey Lane is part of the area of the platted lots, and it's actually listed as an easement. So Dewey's Lane is part of lots 1, 2, and 3, and the respective lot owners have easements, so they can use it for ingress and egress.
It's like a private lane for the
Right.
3 houses.
And I've driven by there and did an examination of it. If you look at it, it was not constructed to the same standard,
No,
let's
it's
say,
not at
as Red Mill, which is further evidence that it was intended to be that way on the plat. I'm not the developer. I didn't design the plat. If
You
it
are
was-
now for the.
Well, I guess
for
I
the-
am now.
You are
but
now for the county,
If
for
it
the
was me,
attorney.
I probably would have made them all streets and not had a bunch of easements, but it is what it is. So we can't do a deed. Carl Wright in Wright Kennedyville does not have the ability to deed to the county Dewey's Lane because it's owned by the owners of lots 1, 2, and 3.
All right, we'll have to, I'll discuss with them, figure out how best to.
They may not be
proceed with
aware of
because
that, but
is
they,
not great
it's
for-
part of their land.
Well, and the other thing is it would be, even if we took it over, then we would have to redo everything, and we'd be taking part of their property.
It would mess up the lot size too.
Redoing everything, so just,
Because the deeds show it, their individual
Correct.
deeds show.
It presents an issue because if we were to take title of that, we would have to do a subdivision plat and it would reduce the lot sizes, which may or may not meet the zoning requirements if
right.
the lot sizes are made smaller. So it might not be something that's really feasible.
right.
Are you able to share with me the plat, lines for those?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that I can address that with them.
Oh, I thought you had
We have
those.
a meeting,
Okay,
coming up
Okay.
in the next couple of weeks, and it would be easier to address that.
yeah,
with
I
them.
can email
I
it to
can-
you when you got it.
okay.
I'll get that.
Now,
I emailed you.
let me ask this question,
That's fine, I
Tom.
got it.
Tom, what you're getting ready to do and what we're getting ready to sign off for, will that allow them, will that solve the problem of the internet and,
That opens the door for the internet problem.
Getting the streets turned over was the
Right.
holdup.
Right.
Once Mr. Wright signs it, and I
Right.
guess it gets recorded, then
then
we
it
can
becomes
start,
theirs?
then it becomes ours,
And
then,
then the internet company can apply to
Come in for
us
a
to be
utility
able to
permit.
put it
Just
through
like in
there.
any
So
county road.
That solves
Correct.
that solves the
Yeah.
problem. of
and I think that was holding up some of
And
the
the internet is already
development of,
through Kennedyville, so they.
some of it,
Right.
but they've kind of held off on some of the other
Right.
more detailed stuff, so.
Okay. And there was also, I think that had something to do with the roads, wasn't there supposed to be some street lights there?
Yes.
That'd be the next one, we'd have to talk to Delmarva Power to come out and do
But
something.
this, what we're doing is gonna make that doable as well, something we can move forward with that
Yeah,
as
these,
well.
there's streetlights placed in the intersections, so.
It's only three, and if something doesn't, I believe I remember them saying they needed three.
One at the main intersection of Dairy and 213, is that correct? And then one at Flower Mill and Red Mill? And that might be it.
I think the third one is in phase 2, so it's not really
Okay.
there yet,
Okay,
But just those two alone would be huge.
yeah.
good.
All right, so if we sign this deed, what Commissioner Nickerson was saying about the HOA,
Well,
the county's gonna do in-kind services.
we already have, Commissioner, we already own the lots. So we're already lot owners by virtue of the deed that we did last year. This doesn't convey any of the lots to us. It just conveys the streets, the stormwater management area, the open space area, and an alley.
Okay.
So we are already
Owners
lot
of lots,
owners, so whatever obligation that we have as a lot owner, we have that obligation regardless of whether or not we accept the streets with this deed.
And have we had an obligation?
We have not paid, we have not received a bill, or we've never engaged in a conversation with the HOA regarding how we would handle this.
I do have a question. Does the open space area also include the pond that you would be taking ownership of?
Yes.
have a
small
plat.
Because right now, we maintain and pay to mow that and
That's
deal
what
with
I'm
all
saying,
of
it
that
could be
as a community HOA.
That's the stormwater management area here,
Yeah,
and then there's a lot here that says open space that fronts
yep, the small
213.
pond, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then if you can see, I know it's hard to see because this is small, there's
And I didn't wear
Dewey's.
my glasses, but
It's
that's
okay.
okay, thank you.
There's Dewey's Lane.
Yep.
And if you look at the lines, that's a dotted line there, the solid lines come out to here. So actually Dewey's Lane, this is part of Lot 3, part of Lot 2, and part of Lot 1.
Okay,
Yeah, on there. And Mr. Moles can get you
that'd be
a
great,
copy of the plat.
thank you. Then I can zoom in.
Yeah.
So Tom, if I understand correctly, the actual building lots, the county already owns.
We already own.
And that was done by our previous Board of Commissioners.
Correct. Here, to give you a condensed version of the
Not
background.
that I disagree with it,
Yeah.
I just was wondering.
Yeah.
So this deed is specifically for the road, the street lighting, to allow the infrastructure to go in there for internet.
GB Kennedyville bought Phase 2 from Wright Kennedyville. We realized after that the streets were never dedicated to the county. So we then went to GB Kennedyville, Cal Gray. And he said, the streets, I never got the streets, they weren't part of the conveyance, they're still owned by the previous developer. We examined his deed, and that was correct, that was specifically excluded. This was brought to the attention of the board that was in place at the time, and what the board decided was that it should be the responsibility of Mr. Gray, GB Kennedyville, to get the streets from Mr. Wright, and then once he's obtained the streets from Mr. Wright, then they can be dedicated to the county. So that was the decision back then. Mr. Gray did nothing in that regard, and then we had the other issues that ensued with the default on the Public Works agreement. And so when Mr. Gray transferred whatever he owned, less the lots he wanted to retain, he didn't transfer to us the streets because he couldn't, because he
They were
didn't.
still owned by the first developer.
Correct.
Developer.
So what we're doing now is we're going to get those streets from the prior developer. That's what this deed accomplishes, assuming that the developer would sign, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. He's kind of washed his hands from this. And in addition to that, we're going to take the stormwater management area and the open space because it makes sense to do that, and it's anticipated that the developer, who's now us, would have those areas until such time the project is built out, then they're transferred to the HOA. And then we put a catch-all so we don't have to go back to anybody in the future, or at least to reduce the risk of that, by saying it is the intent of this deed for Wright Kennedyville to transfer to us anything that they may own. So whatever Carl Wright and Wright Kennedyville LLC, the original developer, has, they're transferring to us.
Correct. We actually found,
When all this was set up, wasn't there like some form of a bond or something that was
With the
posted?
first developer,
But
there
not the
was.
second. There was,
And they
there were,
defaulted, and we took ownership.
correct.
With the second one, they were supposed to put up security and never did, which is part of the reason why they defaulted.
Right. The Public Works agreement had some flaws to it, and it was done during a time where we didn't have a Public Works director and a county attorney separate. And so when Mr. Morris and I came back on the scene, we discovered the problems with that, and we attempted, the commissioners and Mike, we all tried to address that for a long period of time, and it just, it wasn't able to be addressed. And so the solution at that point was just to turn it over to the county.
Water over the dam.
That's
Yep,
right,
that's
yes, what I'm
So,
saying.
Yes.
it's important that we do what we promised to do, or what our previous boards promised to do, and that this current board's promised to do. And so I'd like to make a motion that we, if Commissioner Fithian's willing, to sign the deed and to get that to Mr. Carl Wright for his signature, and then have our county attorney follow.
Second.
And that'll take care of your infrastructure problem, and maybe some lighting. So that's my motion.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
thank you.
Your sand in the water.
Thank you. We're moving in the right direction.
How you making out with that? Anything?
My shower has every 2 days.
2 copies.
It's there.
There's a place for Ronnie to sign, and it'll
We
need to
did
be
some,
notarized.
Just one place?
Yeah, just one place for Ronnie to sign.
outlook to see there's nothing else coming in,
She's the first house
yeah,
it goes to.
so we're
I know
wondering,
a couple others that it's in there.
they've
I
had
think
some.
it's in there and it's just not gonna come out until it's flushed out from the top down.
Right. So, because this is from talking to Chris and everything, a lot of the plumbing in the house is low, and just trying to get it out of that. There's no place to tap off that low section to kind of blow it out.
Dates and shit.
So,
Yeah, but you're good.
said to take the strainers off, try to get that flushed out where we can, see if more's coming out.
Is that
Try to work
something
at it.
that you have the ability to help with, or?
Well, we've been trying to worked out, first we had to figure out, make sure that nothing else is coming in. And we've got a screen actually on the water meter that would get clogged up before that, because that protects the water meter. A lot of times, some people would have the hot water heater stuff, you wouldn't have a problem with the hot water because it would settle in the hot water. Plus, you get that calcium buildup in it every once in a while, you gotta flush them. And you've switched to a
We've always had an
instantaneous.
instant hot water
Right.
heater since we built, yeah.
So it doesn't collect in the hot water tank, whatever it builds up in, that kind of thing. So it's an internal thing, and if we could figure out how to flush out that thing. We've tried, like I say, with the outside spigot, and just trying to clean that out.
Chris had written to me and suggested that we have a plumber come out and flush from the top down.
Work your way down, like we do with our water system with the hydrant flushing. You work your way back through the thing and try to get it flushed out.
Perfectly honest, we don't have money as a family to do it, so we will have to wait.
So we keep working with that. But yeah, they've been out several times.
Chris was kind enough to come stand in my basement and look at my plumbing, so that was fantastic. But yeah.
And this was a result of the way the house was built, or,
I think the location and,
was it
we
the
had-
county's fault, or was it?
Well, one of the potentials, there's, what Chris has said, he sees some of the silica in it, which would have potentially been coming from the filter when we did the media change. There's also potential for when your sinks, you get that white buildup of calcium carbonate in it. And that's where I was wondering if the hot water tank, when that was switched over, might have transferred some of that stuff in the lines to clog it up. That's a common thing with the aerators, is
Ours
that
is
buildup.
very brown sand,
Yeah,
like the beach.
so. You could try to get it flushed out, keep working with her on it.
Please do.
All right?
Keep pushing forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience and for continuing to bring it to our attention. We appreciate it.
Tom, I don't know how long it usually takes to file the deed once it's signed. I mean, obviously the deed's gotta be filed before they can reach out to the internet service.
Yeah, I understand the urgency of it, so as soon as I get a signed deed, I'm gonna get it filed, so there's not gonna be any delay.
What company is up that way now? Is it Think Big or is it
I don't
Talkie?
remember, I just
I think
remember one
Talkie
of them.
maybe.
It
I think it's
could be
Talkie.
both
Do you
of
know
them, for all I
what-
know.
If you were to, if you could get internet tomorrow, what company is in your area? Is Think Big or?
Think Big and Talkie have both gone fast, so we could do either one.
Oh, I got you.
Some of the neighbors have already signed a contract with Think Big and just are waiting
I
for it
got
to be
you.
available.
All right,
Either one is available.
thank you.
Well, as soon as it's signed, he's gonna file it, so.
Right, there's not gonna be any, as soon as I get it back, I'm walking across the street and getting the thing filed.
We will be right on it then, right after that, thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Mazingo, Director of Kent Family Center. FY 2024 Maryland Family Network contract.
Okay, I'm going to be a few minutes longer than Mike, so I'm sorry, everyone. Just kidding. So I have two items before you tonight. One is our updated agreement with Maryland Family Network to provide services at the Kent Family Center. We serve families with children aged birth through 4, and we provide 4 core services: community connections, parent caregiver capacity building, coordinated family supports, and early childhood education. We do this in accordance with the program services proposal that I've sent with my weekly updates. And we do this with several community partners, and so we're going into our 2015, so our 9th year at the Family Center. So last year we served about 42 families, and like I said, that's in conjunction with several community partners, different family serving agencies in the county. So we're just asking for your approval and signature to update that agreement.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and sign the contract between the County Commissioners of Kent County and the Maryland Family Network for the FY 2024 operations of the Kent Family Center.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second item is your agreement and signature on our MOU with Kent County Public Schools for the Judy Centers. We're very excited this year because there's an additional Judy Center added. There's one at Garnett, and now there's one in Galena. So they're able to expand their services a little bit, which helps us because we can work with families to make the transition into school a little bit smoother. We do receive a little bit of funding, about $2,500 per year from the Judy Centers, and we use that for field trips and family literacy activities and family fun events and things like that. So we're asking for your signature on this agreement as well, and this agreement is for 2 years.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and sign the FY 2024 memorandum of understanding between the Kent County Public Schools, Judy Center, and the Kent Family Center.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
She knows when to walk through the door. Rosemary Granillo, Director, Kent County Local Management Board, here for our FY 2024 Community Partnership Agreement
How are you this evening?
and other things.
I've got 3 things.
Yeah.
But the first thing, the most important thing, is receiving the funds. So our community partnership agreement with the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth Prevention, Victim Services.
It's a title that keeps changing. It's a moving target. It's not that Rosie doesn't remember, generally
I do
speaking.
get confused.
She just doesn't remember the last iteration.
With each new administration, they
Right,
give it a
exactly.
different name.
And it's going to change again soon. We're going to get the Governor's Office of Children back. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I have it all stipulated in the background, how this breaks out into the awards that we are implementing in FY 24. So
I'd like to make, go ahead.
I'm requesting your approval.
I'd like to make a motion to sign the FY 2024 Community Partnership Agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
And my second 2 items are both contracts with Menary's Dream Alliance. The first one is for the after-school program at the middle school. This is entirely funded by the community partnership agreement that you just agreed to approve. And so I request your approval on this contract.
I again would like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Kent County Local Management Board and Menary's Dream Alliance Academy for the after-school program using the funds awarded from the Children's Cabinet Interagency.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Rosemary, could you just, very briefly, could you tell us how this will work?
For the after-school
With the
program?
Menary's Dream.
This will be the second year that we've contracted with Menary's Dream Alliance to do the after-school program just at the middle school. They are meeting with students on site at the middle school 3 days a week, and they're focusing on social emotional well-being and just general morale to hopefully increase attendance at the school. We selected an after-school program as a strategy to address chronic absenteeism that we've seen. It's an issue that's happening across the state, but Kent County has seen like pretty concerning trends in terms of attendance. And across the country from different studies, they've been able to establish that after-school programs really do help turn that around and boost morale within the community and the school. So they are they have great partnerships going on with the program. They take the students out with Sultana Foundation to go kayaking. They have the mobile wellness team comes in and talks about nutrition. They're doing a lot of financial literacy work. They have their own money that they can earn in the store and all kinds of different stuff that's going on.
Homework and stuff too, don't they?
Yeah, there's lots of time playing in the gym and doing homework and normal after-school stuff.
Is it possible to forward the video that was recently completed to the
Yes.
commissioners? I think they would
Yeah.
really enjoy seeing it.
Yeah.
It's a really short video that Menary's Dream Alliance produced that has little interviews with the children, and it shows what they get out of the program. I think it's a good representation of
Direct
the program.
testimony. And they've also have about 5 volunteers from Washington College that come in and help tutor and do homework and things like that. And they've established some really nice relationships between the middle school students and the Washington College students.
Very good. Thank you.
I actually heard a lot of good things about what they were doing there last year.
Yeah, and I think the students, some of the students that most need it are connecting with the program. So that's really valuable as well, to make sure that we're really catching the ones that we need to be lifting up. And the second program that we are contracting with Menary's Dream Alliance to do, this is a contract for the Teen Spaces program. Last year, the LMB put out to bid that we were looking for organizations and groups to do activities that just created safe and healthy spaces for adolescents to get together and socialize and just be normal teens again after COVID. And so we awarded some of those funds to Menary's Dream Alliance to do monthly teen events. And part of that is coming from the Safe Summers Award that you all signed off on, I think, at a meeting two times ago. And so that's a contract for this.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Kent County Local Management Board and Menary's Dream Alliance for the Teen Spaces program using funds awarded from the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services, Safe Summer Awards.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
You said it much better than I did. The office.
How did your computer grant and supplying all, have we given away a bunch of them?
Yes, we are fresh out of the first 500 that we applied for, and we applied for another 300. And so we are waiting, that was approved, our application was approved, and we're just waiting to hear when they'll be able to deliver the next batch. And
You've given away 500 computers.
yes.
How about
You didn't get
that?
yours?
Well, I got a broken one.
But yeah, it went really well. We had great support from partner organizations, everybody from Kennetable Housing to Upper Shore Aging to Menary's to the public school system, really being able to get the word out, and people have responded. We made it as straightforward as possible. We did not want to make it a burdensome process, and
Yeah,
so.
right.
But while fulfilling the requirements
Yes.
of the state.
It's a
so
wonder
they
the
work
state
closely.
agreed to that, not gonna make it cumbersome or complicated. It's a wonder they allowed you to do that.
The only restriction that has affected some folks is that it's one device per address. So if you have families cohabiting in a house or communal living situations like a recovery house, that makes it really tricky to get all the people there who you would, like, just by common sense feel were eligible. But it also makes it easier to prevent kind of fraud or abuse of the program.
Gotcha. Well, thank you.
What other type of restrictions or, requirements are?
The only requirements are one device per address, so we ask for documentation of the, like a photo ID, and if their address isn't up to date on their photo ID, we have some sort of their mail or utility bill, and then something that demonstrates that they're low income. So that could be your SNAP card, it could be Medicaid, it could be veterans benefits, pension, a tax return, and also the pandemic EBT card that almost all of our public school students received during the pandemic. That also makes you eligible.
And we've been able to hit like the south part of the county, the north part of the county. with all these
Since we have the
devices, we're
address, I've been
trying to-
able to kind of map a little bit about where we've been able to distribute, and that maybe further along, we could give you final numbers, but we have probably about 300 or so from Chestertown, but we have strong representation from Rock Hall, Betterton, Still Pond, Millington, Massey, and we've been able to serve a lot of non-English speaking families as well.
So there is some outreach too.
Yeah.
There's tons of outreach.
And word of mouth is great.
Usually the best.
Yeah.
Or worst.
Rosie's team made it very easy to find them. Just follow the red arrows when you come into the building.
We've got a lot of drop-ins that way, too. As people have come to pay their taxes, they pop in and say, how can I get a free laptop? And we're able to point them in the right direction. Or just fill out the application right then.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
J.D. Williams, Director, and Katie Wright, Economic Development Manager, Economic and Tourism Development, Economic Development Week in Maryland, October 23rd till the 27th.
Good evening. Good evening.
Some big titles there.
Yeah.
A lot of words. So the first thing is the proclamation for Economic Development Week for MEDA. Katie and I are both members of MEDA, so we do professional development training and attend conferences through the Maryland Economic Development Association. A lot of people don't really understand what economic development is, and this week is designed to increase the awareness of economic development and the role that it plays in the community. So, economic development contributes to the business climate, job retention and growth, the tax base, and the overall quality of life in Maryland and Kent County. So, we're here for the proclamation, and we'll have to get a picture for Pam, and we'll be sending the proclamation to the state as well, so they have a copy that Kent County signed on.
Commissioner Price is going to read your proclamation.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I actually am the commissioner representative that sits on some of your board. And I have to tell my fellow commissioners and the audience listening that I am very thankful as a Kent County citizen, and I've been very impressed with the staff that you have working, within your office. They're very dedicated. They're just doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
So having said that, and of course, all that, to me, is not the underlinks, I want to call them, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but the leadership up there is very notable too. So, having said that, I'd like to present you all with the Kent County Proclamation, Maryland Economic Development Week, October 23rd through the 27th, 2023. Whereas the Kent County Economic Development is an active member of the Maryland Economic Development Association, MEDA, a nonprofit organization established in 1961. The MEDA mission is to enhance the knowledge and skills of its members, encourage partnerships, and networking among people committed to bringing jobs and capital to Maryland. They also promote economic development as an investment in Maryland, and whereas MEDA members work to improve the state's business climate and the professionalism of those in the field of economic development, including other professionals with an interest in the economy of Maryland. And through its regular meetings, special programs, and projects, members address diverse issues, and whereas the economic growth and stability of the state affect all regions and jurisdictions of Maryland, and Kent County economic development is an important component of the state's economic success. Now therefore, we, the county commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, join the state of Maryland and hereby proclaim October 23rd through the 27th, 2023 as Economic Development Week, and ask all to join us in recognizing and supporting the importance of business development locally and statewide. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, and John F. Price, Member. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good.
And I do have to bother you for a picture because Pam would frown upon me not having one.
I think I centered you. All right, fantastic.
Thank you. So the next agenda item actually is what Hester's here for. So the next item we have is the Chestertown Arts and Entertainment District. It was certified in 2015 under a program administered by the Maryland Department of Commerce and the State Comptroller's Office. The district does encompass 51 acres in the historic downtown area. It offers state and local tax abatements for qualified artists who create and sell their creative works in the district, and for the property owner who builds or renovates structures for qualified art purposes. So there's a property tax credit, and in, thought I had the date on here, did I lose it? Oh, here we go. In 2021, there was a property owner who applied for the tax credit, and local legislation was just adopted September 19th of 2023. And it'll be effective on November 3rd, 2023. The issue remains of formal approval to make the property owner's tax abatement retroactive to FY23 and FY24. I have gotten, Pat has looked at the numbers and verified that the amounts are correct. So we are asking for approval to make that tax credit retroactive as it was advertised on the town website.
Can you tell me where 200 High Street is?
Yes, it's across from Evergreen, and the,
Corner High and Queen.
Correct.
Right on the corner.
Used to call that the Evans Building at one time, I think.
and there's, River Arts has a place in there as well, and that's where Silver Linings, yeah, and Silver Linings Jewelry Store is there, and there's some apartments above.
I thought that was 202 High Street. Because I
200.
lived in that building a long time ago, one of the apartments up there.
I think
200
the number
High
has
Street.
changed, and it is now also, so it is 200, and it's, she has it marked as A and B as well, and so I think it may have, because the building is now one big unit, as opposed to having been a couple different spots, it's all referred to as 200 High Street.
33 years ago, when I lived in one of those apartments, it was 202.
Yeah, now they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Are you implying that I had a bad apartment?
Tom sometimes struggles with numbers.
And time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve credit for arts and entertainment property tax credit for an application at 200 High Street for FY23 and FY24 tax years applied retroactively.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay. And the last thing that we had for this evening is the Maryland Agricultural and Research-Based Industry Development Corporation, also known as MARBIDCO, grant agreement. Just some background, in FY 2023, the commissioners approved $20,000 within the Economic and Tourism Development budget for the Upper Shore Regional Council's Micro Ag Grant Program to leverage funding from MARBIDCO's local government Ag Resource-Based Industry Development Cost Share Grant Program. These programs promote the development, expansion, and coordination of ag enterprises and initiatives within the Upper Shore. Kent County's funding leveraged $30,000 from the Upper Shore Regional Council, which brought the total for this year to $50,000. We had 9 applicants that were approved for grant funding for the total of $50,000. Both the Marbidco grant as well as the Upper Shore Micro Ag Grant are reimbursement grants. We have Apotheosis Farm as one of our applicants who is being awarded. They also applied for the Marbidco grant match, and they were awarded it, or agreed to be awarded, approved in full. So we are here to have that grant agreement signed.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and sign the Upper Shore Regional Council, Maryland Agriculture and Resource-Based Industry Development Corporation Grant Agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
And
Very good.
just this afternoon, before the 4:30, I got an email from Commerce for our tourism numbers for calendar year 2022. $72 million was brought into Kent County through our visitor spending, $72 million, which is the highest it's ever been. So way,
The previous year, do you remember?
last year, I do have it here, but 68 is the highest it was at one point. It was 68 last year, so like 2018 was 63, 2019 was 64, and then we had COVID in 2020, which was 47 million, and 2021 was 68, and 2022 was 72. So,
So we're doing something right.
nice increase, yes, yes, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have the full report at some point, once it's approved to be shared. I'll share it.
Jim Miller, Human Resource Director. Jim Miller, Director of Human Resources. And Jen White. And her his right-hand lady, Jen White.
One of my bosses.
Yeah.
We're here right now to ask your approval to basically offer a promotion to an internal candidate for the position of paramedic supervisor. I'll let Jen speak to the details, but uniformly it was considered a great candidate for this next step up in his career.
This is due to a vacancy. We had the previous incumbent left for a similar role in another neighboring county. The applicant in front of you was the only one who applied. And as Jim said, he is a great candidate. He has previous supervisory experience and over 40 years experience in the field.
Any questions, gentlemen?
I don't think so. No, I
I was
don't.
kind of hoping that this would be a little simpler.
He certainly is a good candidate. He's been involved in emergency services for a long time.
A long time. He's been a volunteer for a long time.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional employment offer.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hopefully I can cruise through my items pretty fast. Two items for your, well, one item truly for your consideration, and that is the state's attorney's office lease. As you know, they are downtown, across the street from said High Street building that you just discussed in the Arts and Entertainment District, 211 High Street. And this is a 3-year extension, which would be effective November 1st, 2023, on a 1-year basis through October 31st, 26. So those are the 3 years.
I saw KRM was a little more aggressive on their rent increase on this one.
Yes, and I did ask them about that. I think they were rather kind to us in the last 5-year period.
The CAM really went up too. It's like every commercial landlord now, they
I
never
know.
used to do this, and now every commercial landlord, one started it, and they're all doing the CAM now.
Right. And
What?
They
the
call
CAM.
common area maintenance lease. It's something commercial landlords didn't used to do, but a lot of them are doing it now. So in addition to paying rent for the square footage that you occupy, they do an assessment for the common areas,
Common
like the
area.
parking lot and
I
the
got you.
sidewalks and all that.
And the per year increase is less than their current increase, which is 3%. So it is presented for approval.
And I asked a question early on about there being a clause in there, if proper notice was given, that we could end the contract if we found another space. Because our long-range vision is that maybe down the road, there may be some additional county office space available that would accommodate maybe even a couple of our county agencies that we're currently paying an enormous amount of rent for.
That would take an examination of the
So-
existing lease.
We
because-
actually pulled it.
Okay, good, good.
Article 1, paragraph 2, the term of this lease, this is in the original lease. Was a second amendment for the previous 5 terms, and then this would be the third amendment, or The term of this lease is for 3 years, provided, however, the tenant shall have right to terminate this lease upon 60 days' notice prior to the end of any tenant's fiscal year. This lease is also subject to Section 1-403 of the local government article of the annotated code of Maryland, and that's the non-appropriation clause. So
We're good.
I think that gives us plenty of flexibility should the need arise.
And the only reason why I worry about this is because when you add up the 3 years total, we're looking at $160,000+ in 3 years for rental, for office rent. That's a lot of money.
It's a nice space up there. It's a
Oh,
lot different than
it may-
103 Church Alley.
It may be a nice space, and I'm not opposed to them having a nice space. It's just that that's a lot of money for 3 years.
103
of
Church
rent.
Alley, I thought was a nice space, to be totally honest with you. I mean, it wasn't anything wrong with it.
You would go in that space 30 years, 25, 30 years
No,
ago?
well, the last time I was at the state's attorney's office was at Church Alley, and I didn't find it.
Maybe they did some improvements to it. I don't know. It was,
There's a lot of mold in there, or there was.
Oh, okay.
This is unquestionably a nice space.
there's no comparison
Stop
between
by.
where they are now and 103 Church Alley. It's
Probably
apples
no
to oranges.
comparison in the
Well,
cost
it's
of
also
the
very
rent.
convenient to the courthouse and all that too, so.
That's my point, yeah, exactly. Not that it matters, but I'm sure the rent increase was pretty significant as well.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the third amendment to the lease with KRM at 211 High Street, LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay, and next we have a proclamation to be signed for the 50th anniversary of the Friends of the Kent County Public Library, and they'd really like to take this proclamation, have it framed, and hang it in the hallway. And I have 2 report outs. One is, I believe this is the second time now that this announcement is being made, but the Maryland Department of Health Community Overdose Action Town Hall Series will happen here in Kent County on October 24th at 6:30 to 7:30. You can email help.oocc@maryland.gov for more information. On that day, we will have the Special Secretary of Opioid Response, Emily Keller, join us, and that is open to the public.
And that is going to be here,
Correct, that is here.
and our meeting's at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right, we have a
that
day
day.
meeting, that meeting, this is next Tuesday, and this will happen at 6:30 in
Gotcha.
this space. And you had requested that letters be sent to the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, inviting them into a conversation regarding blueprint funding. the ins and outs and all the good stuff, so
Has
those
it been-
letters were sent.
Been sent?
Correct.
Got a response yet?
Not yet.
I wouldn't hold my breath for that.
No, we do have a paper trail.
Yes, we do. Then we have a closed session or more. Closed session.
All right, so we have a total of 4 closed session matters involving personnel. And I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session to discuss 3 matters, actually 4 matters, under the annotated code of Maryland. General provisions, Article 3-305, little b, 305B. 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluations of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We are in closed session.